Welcome to another installment of Friday Q&A. Not any Q&A though, because it is Q&A number 100, which blows my mind that I got to 100 and I wouldn't have been able to do it without all the awesome questions you all ask. So thank you so much. I'm going to get in and answer some of those questions, but first I want to take a selection of questions that I threw out to all my Patreon backers. If you're interested in supporting the channel on Patreon and getting some access to some exclusive content like backing tracks and video lessons and guitar tab, you can follow the link in the video description. So let's get into that. And then there is a plethora of questions that you all asked me on the channel last week, and I want to answer all of those as well. Before we get going though, I'm playing my single cut, my favorite guitar, into the Fractal FM3. I've got the USA lead mid-gain model, and I've got this big circular delay style multi-delay thing going. That's some good stuff right there. This one comes from Eric. Power amp simulation, stuff like the 2Notes power amp sim, or using a power amp sim in something like the Axe-Fx, or I guess an atomic amplifier, versus actual power amps. I've found that they compare very, very well when you're recording. It's obviously a very different experience if you have a power amp sim and an impulse response, as opposed to running a power amp and a cabinet in a room. It's the amp in the room versus the FR thing in that particular case. But I get some really, really good results running my rack preamps into my Axe-Fx 3. I actually play them a lot more than I would otherwise if I was just running a cabinet and a power amp. So yeah, no complaints with those at all. The 2Notes Wall of Sound power amp sims are pretty good. Plugins like Euphoria by Mercurial Audio, I'm pretty sure let you disable the preamp, so you can just use them as a power amp sim and an IR loader. And I do have a video on a power amp simulation with the Axe-Fx 3, which you can check out. So I'm a fan. I like it. The most efficient way to get into plugins, this is from one of my patrons, Ray. The nice thing about most plugins at the moment is that they have some kind of trial period. For example, I'm just kind of thinking of amp modeling plugins in particular. You can check out stuff. I mentioned Mercurial Audio. That's a really hard word to say. I can never kind of get the R right just in there. Blame my Australian accent where R and R sound exactly the same. Or the Neural DSP stuff. You can normally get like a 2-week trial on most of those things. So that's a pretty good way to go about it. Just do the trials. Try as much stuff as you can. And if there's stuff that you like, go out and buy a license. It's pretty awesome. There's also some really good free plugins out there, whether it is stuff like, you know, time-based stuff like Valhalla Supermassive. You should definitely get that. TDR Nova is a great dynamic EQ plugin. Just thinking off the top of my head, some other really good free ones that I've got. And there's a bunch of kind of free amp sim VST stuff, like the Taranov stuff is really good as well, and stuff like, I think it's Ignite Emissary as well. Definitely get around to checking that one out. It's quite fun. This next one comes from Roger. He is having a lot of latency with his Corey Wong Archetype plugin. If you're using something like the Focusrite, I haven't used Scarlett for quite a long time, but you know, you shouldn't have too many issues with that. I would say in the plugin, or if you're running the plugin in your DAW, you would want to turn down the like latency as low as it will go. I know I just said, oh, you got too much latency, turn the latency down. But I know in Pro Tools, normally you can go to setup and you can change like the USB buffer size. So set that as low as it will go without it giving you audio artifacts or anything like that. But if you're just kind of using something like a Focusrite, it should be fine. Roger, feel free to send me a private message or something like that if you want a hand working through that as well. This next one comes from Shane Williams. Shout out to Shane. Dial in my preset style video. Yeah, let's just do this. I've been hesitant about this in the past, but I will make this kind of distinction. Don't send me a preset which is like, hey, I dialed in this particular amp and cab, so I think it's like the sickest metal tone. Send me your really creative presets, or send me, you know, maybe a preset that you're having trouble with because you can't quite kind of get the thing that you want out of it, or send me presets where, you know, you've got some really interesting creative use of, like, you know, a delay and a tremolo together and you're doing some dynamic stuff with LFOs. I would love to check that out and analyze it on the channel, you can find my contact details via the contact page on YouTube, or you can just send me a private message on Instagram, or if you're a patron, just message me directly. Another one from Shane: how do I go about memorizing songs? This is a good question. I probably have the hardest time memorizing my own songs. So if we're doing like a new ragdoll song for the first time, and it's not so much a memorization thing, it's every now and then I'll just have mental blanks where it's like I start thinking about it too hard when we're playing live, and it's like, I've played this song probably 1,000 times by now. We've rehearsed it, we've recorded it, all that kind of stuff. And I just kind of have those moments. So I've just kind of learned to live with those moments. But if I'm learning covers, and especially if it's a song with a really distinct set of vocal cues, like let's say you're playing Wonderwall, for example, the first chord, kind of syncs up with Today. So it's that. So I kind of remember that the verse starts with that particular chord and it starts with that particular phrase. Similarly, I would go through with the pre-chorus has a different melody and a different lyric. So I'd try to go off that vocal cue. That's normally how I remember parts. The other thing that I will do is I will just listen to the song as much as possible when I'm not sitting down playing guitar. So I'll be listening to it while I'm driving. If I'm on the way to a gig, I'll probably listen to it a couple of times in the car. One of the funniest instances of this, I even hesitate to call it a gig, but I got called to play guitar for a one-off thing with Justice Crew, who I think they won X Factor or something like that, or Australia's Got Talent one year. And it was really a last minute thing, and they wanted me to prepare like 3 or 4 songs on acoustic guitar. So I was driving down to this thing just with these 3 songs on repeat. Just like, okay, I got to nail these things. And I was listening out for these vocal cues and, trying to make note of which singer's singing which part. And then I got there and it was a charity event, and all they did was they got up and danced. They just said, we're not that interested in, I don't think people really want to hear us sing the song. We're just going to do some break dancing and stuff like that. So I stood up for like 10 minutes. I played A minor, F and G, and these guys just like tore it up. They were the nicest dudes as well. So that was an interesting, I'd memorized the songs, but luckily I wasn't like super under pressure to nail them. It was more just kind of, strum some chords while some people freestyle dance. It was awesome. This next one comes from Tony about bass for guitar players. What are some tips? One thing I would say is, I'll outline 2 main tips, and these are things that Ryan does all the time, because Ryan's a great guitar player as well. He's an awesome singer, and he's a really good bass player as well. So he's someone who came from guitar and kind of by necessity just kind of learnt how to play bass. One thing I would say is don't stress too much about fingers versus pick. If you're a guitar player, you're probably going to want to play with a pick, and that's fine because you'd probably be a lot more in time. That's paramount here. I would put the timing and getting the notes right over, the difference between playing with fingers and playing with a pick. Although there are certain things that you really need to play with fingers to get them right, but that can come in time. The other thing would be, a really good example of something would be, let me think of a ragdoll song where we're not playing exactly the same thing. This is kind of like a Queensryche thing, say where the guitar is, maybe playing a particular riff in the higher registers, and rather than like follow the guitar part. So I'll give you, let's do this. Let's do Rewind Your Mind, dual delay kind of thing. So I'll tap the tempo in, it'll be somewhere about there. So that's what's going on the guitar, and rather than try to follow that, the bass is just locking in with the accents on the kick drum. So I always think of the bass player as like the translator between the rhythmic hits of the drums and the kind of melodic and harmonic stuff the guitar's doing. The bass is the glue in the middle. Which is just following what the kick drum pattern is doing. So a good thing you can do is, you could program a particular groove with like a drum plugin and just sit there and practice playing octaves and basically think of the low note as your kick and the high octave as your snare. So doing those kind of That's a really, really good way just to kind of get used to playing that groove-based style stuff. And I'll give you a third one as well, would just be like, if the guitar chords are going down, make the bass notes go up. So if the guitar was doing A minor, G, and F, you could play the bass notes as A, B, and C, or something like that. So yeah, that kind of screams out for just a dedicated video on it. Something I should probably get Ryan in to do, because he's far better at it than I am, and he has to do that stuff and sing at the same time. So he's got it fully internalized, whereas, I mean, I probably only played bass on demos half the time now. A lot of the time I'll just program the bass lines with Contact. Alrighty, from Donnie, another patron, in the Shine music video, what is going on with the text? I'll have to get back to you with that one. I didn't make that video. That was done by our very good friend Chris Reeve, and he's like a master at Illustrator and Photoshop and Final Cut and all these kind of things. So we'll have to get back to you on that one, but I would say that it was some kind of effects kit or some custom animation that he put together. And there we go. That's all the patron questions. I'm going to play a bit of guitar, and then I'm going to go through all your questions on YouTube and answer those. On to part two. These are all the YouTube comments. If you have questions you want me to answer in the next Q&A, which will not be next week because it's Christmas, and not the week after because it's New Year's Eve, we'll do it the week after that. Please let me know in the comments. Let's get started. This one is from Mark Pritchard. Good to see you here, Mark. Can I daisy chain 2 amps on the Axe-Fx 3? Is putting them in parallel the same as daisy chaining? I'm guessing you mean like the way you would see an old, say, Hendrix video where he's got a bunch of 100-watt plexis daisy chained together. That's a really good question, and one I couldn't really answer. I always thought the idea of daisy chaining was essentially that you're just kind of getting your input signal routed over to the next amp. So in that case, running them in parallel would probably work. I wouldn't run them in series. It would not sound anything like that. The other thing though is, like, think about that situation. A lot of the time it was a wall of the same Marshalls and the same cabs, and probably none of them, or maybe one of them, was mic'd. So in that case, it's just more volume. So you could always just turn the volume on your whole rig up. That would be fun. All right, let's take a look at the next one. This one's from Brad. Better read the whole question. Possible question for your next Q&A? Well, it's a definite question for my next Q&A, which is this one right here. Have you had a look at the 2Notes Captor X? I haven't. I've really wanted to get my hands on one. I used to own the original Captor. I replaced it with my Fractal X load, but the Captor X adds a whole bunch of really cool stuff. 2Notes look like, based on specs anyway, they've kind of knocked that one out of the park. So picked up a Captor X to use with my amps. I'm pretty pleased with it. Tried it with my boogies. Oh, there's a nice collection of boogies right here. Man, a really nice collection of boogies. And the Transatlantic. The Transatlantic is really cool. So hopefully in 2021 I can get my hands on a Captor X and try that out. Can you run the FM3 editor in full screen? You can make it as like wide or as tall as your screen, but it won't take up the entire thing, but you can get close enough. Luis, do a list showing how many followers you have by country from lowest to highest. Want to see how many more are from the Dominican Republic. I had a look and I couldn't see the Dominican Republic on the list at all, so I think that makes you potentially the only viewer there, which is pretty cool that people literally on the other side of the world, if you were to draw a straight line through Perth, Western Australia, it would come out somewhere in like the Gulf of Mexico or the Caribbean Sea or something, which is quite close. So that's kind of cool. Alrighty, any new ragdoll music on the horizon? Yeah, it's definitely on the horizon at the moment. I've said this in a couple of other Q&As. We've tracked a bunch of stuff. We just haven't done any work on it for a little while now, especially this year, the year of the Great Plague, which has been a bit of a bummer. But I actually got all the stuff we have tracked so far and I've been going through it at home and just kind of retracking some guitars and doing some stuff on it. So I did a bunch of work on it this week, which was really fun. Great t-shirt. I agree. That was a great t-shirt last week. There we go. And we got the same question from, I'm guessing this is Donnie. Answered that question a little bit earlier. Didn't realize how far Perth was to Melbourne. Yeah, I always say to people that if you think of the continental United States and Australia, they're roughly the same kind of width, and Perth would be like San Diego and Melbourne would be like Miami. So big country. Let's see, the same headphones. Could you maybe do a tape delay Axe-FX 3 video? Yeah, that's hey, any delay video on the Axe-FX I'm down to, because I do that how I dial in delay series. So see if we can cop Echo Rec, Echoplex, and Space Echo tones. There is an awesome Echoplex preset that Matt Picone did. Shout out to Matt. Matt is my hero. His presets are amazing that he shared on the forum that nails the Echoplex thing. And I was able to get really close to the Echo Rec simulation in the Boss DD200 with the multi-tap delay in the Axe-FX 3. Space Echo I haven't tried. I know that kind of incorporates reverb and multi-head echo as well, which is kind of cool. Laney LFR, I've heard they're pretty good as well. Sad Wings Raging, my favorite song from '99, Let's Pretend We're Married for Reasons. Actually, it's free. I just used the other song for a lark. Yeah, neither of these songs have any guitar in them. I have a lot of favorite songs that just have zero guitar in them. And I often think, is it because they don't have guitar that I like them so much, that it's just totally a different kind of sonic template than what I spend my entire life doing, sitting around playing? I don't know. Is it? Let me know. Angle Savage 120 Mark II. Ooh, Channel 3, Whitesnake on an Angle. You're talking my language right now. Who's your daddy? Sorry for commenting again. Don't ever be sorry for commenting again. Get all your comments in. It's good stuff. Alrighty, how do you use a modeler to get feedback naturally? You kind of got two ways to do this. One is just have immense volume. So if you're playing live, this is a lot easier because you're pushing a lot of air. The other is to play with lots of gain. And when I play live, I normally do both. So I have absolutely no problem getting loads and loads of feedback. Gear rundown of your dad's stuff one day. That would be really, really cool. Let's put that on the list of things to do. I'm going to love that comment as well, because that's a good one. I should get my dad for some more videos. I think I should probably do a Sensitive Sundays video with him. If you would all like to see that, let me know in the comments. Mr. Tinker Train, cue for next time. When was the last time you used a tube amp for a gig? It was, I remember this because technically this was the last time I did a tube amp gig. I used my Marshall DSL as a power amp with my Axe-FX Ultra, and that was March of 2016. We did a show at a little place called HQ here in Perth. The week after that, we did a show at the Charles Hotel, and I remember that because that was the first gig where I ever tried running direct, and it felt like everyone came up to us and just said, "You guys have never sounded so good." And it was probably because the Charles is an awesome room and one of my favorite sounding places in Perth. But I'll put it down to running direct with the Axe-FX Ultra. So that was the vote of confidence that I needed, and I've never used a tube amp for a gig since, which is kind of crazy. Well over, coming up to 5 years now. Well over 4 years. Alrighty. Ooh. Boogie Woogie Creep mentioned the Marshall Majors. That is an absolute bucket list amp for me to try. Would Ragdoll consider doing a virtual concert? Yes. That is, again, just kind of like a... well, it's probably not going to happen now because we're on like Christmas, New Year break at the moment. But if if this plague continues the way it's going, we will try and get one together in the new year, or I will live stream one of our upcoming gigs that we have here in Perth. Yeah, it's summer over here. We can gig. It's paradise here in Perth. For the 50K video, I'd like to see you playing some Jason Becker. Oof, oof. Yeah, which song? What do I have to play? I think I know one proper Jason Becker lick, that lick from Concerto. But that would be awesome. And I would love to come to Portugal. This comment gets a heart as well. You all deserve hearts. Everyone gets a heart. Great Q&A. I got to see Zach Wild with Zach Sabbath. That's the show I really want to see. I've seen Zach, saw him at Rocklahoma a few years ago with Black Label. And man, it sounded immense. His guitar just had this... It was this monolithic tone, everything you would expect from Zach Wild, but that was so good. G&L, I would love to get a Rampage like Jerry Cantrell one day, but you know, because of the Jerry Cantrell association, trying to get an original one from there is kind of hard. But yeah, I like the G&L stuff that I've tried. Would like to see a review of the Eventide H3000. Well, if you like Eventide rack stuff, I do have something coming up very soon. It's not a 3000, but it's pretty cool. But yeah, an original 3000 is right at the top of the list of rack gear I would like to test or acquire. On your special number 100 Q&A, I know it's meant to be a special one, but it's just kind of a long, normal one, isn't it? Could you reveal the top 10 albums of all time in your catalog, or tell us about your favorite ragdoll songs? I think it would be very interesting. Alrighty. Let's see. First, thanks. And to everybody who's commented, thank you for the support. I love doing these Q&As. I really do. If I had to name 10 albums that have been influential on me, let's start at the album, well, 2 albums that made me want to start playing guitar. One is Thin Lizzy's Live and Dangerous album. Another is Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park, because that was just angry music when I was going through adolescence, and it just sounded so intense. So those 2 are really important. They kind of got me into music and got me into playing guitar. Whitesnake 1987 I'm going to throw in there. Queensryche Empire I'm going to throw in there. And let's think, Rainbow Rising has to be in there as well for kind of rock stuff. Then there's a couple of other albums which these, I guess, are like the deep cuts. One of my favorite albums ever is Lemon Parade by Tonic. I'm going to put Jeff Buckley's Grace album in there because that one kind of changed lots of things for me. We're at 7 already. What else could I throw into this mix in terms of favorite albums? Another one is so this is a soundtrack, and it's a soundtrack to the movie Oblivion, but it's by M83. I'm a big fan of their work, and there is a Scandinavian singer on there called Susanne Sundfør, who her stuff is stunning, and she's got a really great couple of solo albums that I would recommend checking out. I'm going to throw in Suzanne Vega's, what was the album that had Luca on it? I should know this one, and it's got like Fancy Poultry and Tom's Diner and all those kind of things. You would think I would remember this, but there's actually quite a few Suzanne Vega albums I could consider there. Love her stuff. And the last one, let's go for something maybe a little bit more contemporary. Say I'll just kind of go for one that in the last 5 years kind of hit me really, really hard. And I'll throw Alter Bridge's Fortress album in there just because it has all my favorite Alter Bridge songs on there. And we always get compared to Alter Bridge, and it's kind of one of those things in there where it's, yeah, just the whole combination, Miles's voice and the songs on there. There's a song on there called Waters Rising that Mark actually sings, and it's probably my favorite one of their songs. So yeah, I'll throw that in there. I could just keep this list going and going. Oh, maybe, so either that Alter Bridge album or Symphony X Paradise Lost, because I did a Symphony X video the other day. There's so much more stuff. You know, we're not talking about like classical music or jazz. I don't really have any favorite jazz albums. Jazz is not my favorite genre of music. But there's some stuff in there. There's some cool stuff. All the Mahavishnu albums are really cool. King Crimson, Red should be in there. You could replace any of those albums with that. UK, their debut album, the one within the Dead of the Night, in the Dead of Night should be on there. Yeah, this list could go on and on and on. My favorite ragdoll songs to play live, I love playing Shine because I love opening with that because Ryan does that giant a cappella vocal at the start, which you just see people kind of turn around and like they don't know what they're hearing if they've never heard us for the first time. So that one's on there. Rust is definitely up there at the moment. That one is so fun to play live, and it's probably my favorite solo. And as a third one, I'll put in the song Self-Censored, because that's our little tip of the hat to Rush. Go and check that one out if you like kind of, you know, early 80s Rush. It's got a little bit of that and a little bit of King's X in there as well. Oh, and King's X, Dogman, that's got to be in the top 10. Like, that's my favorite rock album ever. How did I forget that one? So, yeah. That list could go on and on and on. Alrighty, question for the next Q&A. What did you study in school? What was your first job? So my first job was teaching guitar, and that's still what I do as my main job. I started that when I was 15, and that really, you know, trying to play stuff and then trying to show people how to play stuff is a whole other process. And what's the saying? Those who can't do, teach. Those who can't teach, teach Jim. And what I studied in school, I did a 4-year honors degree in pure mathematics and mathematical statistics, if you can believe it. Deja Blue. Now that you've passed 50,000 subs and 100 Q&As, how will your band and wife deal with your internet fame? I don't know, Ryan, what do you reckon of my internet fame?
Shove it up your ass.
The hardest shred style is to actually get it to work in music. Yes, I would definitely agree there. That's why I really admire people like Eric Johnson or Marty Friedman, these people who can apply their insane chops to, actually making it work in the context of a song. Let's see, as for rhythm, Hard to Cop EVH's I'm the One. That's right up the top. DLR's Showtime. Yes, I love a good Van Halen shuffle. Two hyper shuffles that are unachievable for mere mortals like me. You know what I always say, when you want to get that nice kind of shuffle, it's all right hand, so you got to imagine that you're patting a really cute dog. When you scratch a dog behind the ear, you kind of just do that with your wrist. That's how you get that going on. Got another question from Who's Your Daddy? Stainless frets, love them. I have them on my Strat and one of my Hamers, and I think I need to get all my guitars done. I think we are supposed to get a vaccine soon. That is amazing and really exciting, which means hopefully live music and a whole bunch of other things like just kind of general life stuff can kind of get back to normal. And I'm glad you enjoyed the gig footage, even though it was like crummy GoPro footage. Alrighty, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. From Ronha, question, sorry to be a question asked all the time, but any new ragdoll music? Like I said earlier, there's some on the horizon. We'll hopefully release some stuff next year, at least a single next year, because we like to release something every year. But I should have mentioned this earlier, we released a live album a month or two ago, and we also did a Live from Isolation live EP, and there's an acoustic version of Shine on there. So I should plug those two. They're on our Bandcamp, link in the video description. Let's see. Back to Zero or a cassette, it would be worn out 10 times over. Yeah. Ryan needs the beard back. Ryan's beard is huge. Cam needs the beard back. So that's what's going on there. The metal Klon shirt. I need one of those, definitely. What about a video with the FM3 with stock impulse responses? Put that on the list. I really should do that and go through my favorite IRs there. And thank you to all the people. Thank you to everyone who said congrats on 50,000 subs. I really had nothing to do with that. It's all of you people. You're the ones who have subscribed. So thank you. Next one is a big 100. What's it like to be back out gigging? Pretty awesome, Hayden. And I hope you're doing all right, mate. Because, yeah, it's the first one back felt really, really, really good. And I say to people here in Perth, it's like depressingly normal now. But being able to go out and gig and just kind of do what we do as musicians is, I realized how much I took that for granted. I got to give some hearts out here as well. I like to snorkel and scuba too, but I can never get my mask to seal around my facial hair. So my mask is a Neptune mask. And one thing you can do is you can put some Vaseline on your lip, and that will kind of help create a watertight seal. I'm kind of lucky where I think the mask sits like quite high on my lip, but if it sits a bit lower on yours, then try the Vaseline trick. Regarding the question around getting punched with a modeler, the power cab, yeah, I have not tried one of those, but I have tried one of the Line 6, like their PA style wedges, and they were pretty punchy. There was a gig that we did a while ago where they had those backline. I was really, really surprised. Thank you, Stephen. I hope you're getting better as well. Yeah, a kind of sane country. We're all insane here, but we're very lucky with the whole thing that's happened where we've mainly been able, I say we, like, the government policies have meant that we haven't been smashed by COVID-19 like the rest of the world. What do folks from down under think of Aussie Man reviews? Bloody legend. That's what we think of that guy. That was a great question by Robert Baker. Love Nuno and Zach. Those guys are very hard to emulate. Speaking of Robert, he put up a video jamming over the backing track to Shine. And Robert, I have to say, that absolutely made my day. To everybody else who has posted a video, did I say Shine? I meant to say Rust. You guys get this one totally unedited. It was so cool to see people absolutely ripping over that backing track to Rust. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I did a video with a couple of my mates where they all played a few different lines and solos over the backing track to Rust. If you go to that video, you can get a download link, get the backing track for the solo, have a blast over it, put it up on YouTube or on Instagram, tag me. I would love to see it. It would make my Christmas even better. And having said that, thank you all so much for sitting through this much longer Q&A. Thank you for your questions. Get your questions in for the next Q&A, which will be at the start of next year. If you're somebody who celebrates Christmas, Merry Christmas. If you're somebody who doesn't celebrate Christmas, well, Merry Christmas. Anyway, Happy Hanukkah. Have a great new year. Peace and love on earth. Take care of yourselves. I want to see you all here next year. And yeah, you know, it's been a year, hasn't it? 2020. And I, for one, am just very, very grateful to be here and be in good health. And what more can you ask for at the moment? Thank you, all you wonderful people, for your questions. Stay safe. Be good to one another. I'll see you next time.